Hi, my name is Kristen Click. I was a high school math teacher and computer applications teacher for many years. And one of the things that I saw my students needing to understand better is how to cite their sources using Microsoft Word. It's very, very simple and much easier than having to put them in by hand. One of the resources that I like to use is called OWL Purdue. It specifically demonstrates the APA format and the MLA format. Now, whether you're a high school student or a college student, using Microsoft Word and its built-in ability to cite your sources is such a time saver. So I wanted to demonstrate this and show you how easy it is. Now, I'm not an English teacher, so I have difficulty understanding exactly how to cite my sources, just like everyone else does. So by using this Purdue University Online Writing Lab, or OWL, I have been able to tell exactly how things are supposed to be cited. Notice that it has the APA format and the MLA format. And what I've done here is I've just simply Googled OWL Purdue, and you see that the very first response to that search is the Purdue University Online Writing Lab. Since I'm more familiar with the APA format, that's what I'm going to be demonstrating, but please notice that it doesn't matter which of these formats you're being asked to use. What I'm going to show you will work. So be sure to ask your teacher, your professor, which format they want you to use. And if it's APA or MLA, then using this resource is very, very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and click on that APA formatting. And the very first thing it takes you to is just a general look at how the APA guidelines are mapped out there for you. But notice over here on the left, you have a lot of different options. One of the things that I love to use over here is it has a sample paper, and I love to bring up that sample paper when I have questions, because in that way I'm able to look at how my paper is supposed to look in the end. But it gives you insight citations, all the basic information on that, exactly how to cite particular sources. But here's the sample paper that I was talking about, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up now and sort of give you a little bit of a preview on what an APA paper is supposed to look like. Notice that on this very front page you have a running head, varying definitions of online communication is what this one's called. And then later on down through here, notice that the header of the next page it does not have the words running head right here. So that's one of those things that you have to kind of tackle just a little bit and have to be familiar with Microsoft Word and know how to make that happen. But when it comes to actually citing your sources, notice that the sources are cited in line. Then when you go to the end of the paper, you have a reference page, not a big bibliography or a works cited. It's actually called references. A couple of things we're going to note about this. The word references is not bolded, it's centered. Notice that everything on this page is still double spaced, which is appropriate for APA formatting. And then also notice how each of the sources that have been cited has a hanging indentation, which means the first line is flush with the margin on the left, but the lines underneath that initial line are then indented a ½ inch. So all of those things are very important when you're creating your own paper. You need to know what it's going to look like no matter which style of references you are asked to use. Let's go over here to a paper that I have started and give you some idea of what I'm referring to. If I need to cite a source as I'm typing the paper, it's a very easy thing to do. Make sure your insertion point, I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. Wrong way. I'm going to make sure that my insertion point, that is my little blinky line there, is exactly where I need it to be in order to cite what needs to be cited here. I need to put in information then about the source where I got this information. I've been told by English teachers that if you're not sure whether or not you should cite it, cite it. Now, if you'll go up here to the top, we have several different tabs, and you can click on the Reference tab. Notice here it has a section called Citations and Bibliography. Just to make you aware, I'm using Microsoft Office 2010. So in this section, Citations and Bibliography, here it says Insert Citation. So I'm going to click on that. Notice that it already has a list of sources I've already used in this paper. But what I want to do is add a new source. If I was going to use a source that I had already entered, I would just simply click on it and then that source would be added right where my insertion point is. But I'm going to show you how to add a new source. Just click on Add New Source. And the first thing that we need to know is what type of source is it? For many of us, websites are where we get our information. We may have a textbook where we get some information. We may have a journal somewhere where we may get some information. We might even do an interview occasionally. But for the vast majority of what we're going to be researching, most of us are going to be using a website. But let's click on this little arrow and take a look at some of our options. You have sections of books, journal articles, articles and periodicals, conference proceedings, reports, websites, documents from websites, which that's oftentimes one that gets used a lot as well, any other electronic source, art, sound recordings, performances, films, interviews, patents, cases, other miscellaneous things. So the very first thing you need to do is to choose which of these best relates to what you are wanting to cite. Oftentimes, you will have a journal article that's from a website. That's okay. Go ahead and select Journal Article. Let's go ahead and pretend I have a journal article that I want to cite. Now notice that you have some information that it's asking you to fill in. This is not the only information that you can fill in. It says Show All Bibliography Fields. I recommend you click on that because you have other information that you can enter. And again, especially if you're getting your journal article from a website, it's important to include the URL where you found that. And if you don't, go ahead and open this up and expand this information box, you won't see the place where you're supposed to put the URL. So you notice that it was not one of the red starred recommended fields, but certainly it is an important field for you to fill in. You never know when you might need to come back and go back to that website again, either for more information from this article or to search for another article. So let's imagine for a moment that my journal article, I'll open my browser back up over here, and we'll just minimize this. And go to Journal of Accountancy. They have many topics there, and I've actually used this as a source on many occasions. And you might see something in this Journal of Accountancy that you want to use as a reference in your paper. Here we go. Here's a nice article that we might like to use. Now what I'm going to do, and I like to do this as well, is have both of these open at the same time. That way you can see exactly from one frame to the other what you're needing. They are asking for the author, and in most cases you can get the author's name right from the web page. And I'm a fan of just copying and pasting when it lets me do that. Obviously this website is not going to let me do that, so that's all right. Bruce Pounder is his name. And I'll tell you what another trick is. Let me just quickly show you another quick little thing that I like to do is if I open these in a smaller version side by side, then I don't have to keep clicking back and forth. So again, back to insertion, add a new source. I've decided it's a journal article, and I'm going to show all of my fields. and this way I can type in the person's name. Now, if you have more than one person that is the author, then the best thing to do is go over to where it says Edit, and it will bring up another box that allows you to enter multiple authors. Then the title, Framing the Future, the name of the journal, the year, and again, some of this information you will get from your websites, and sometimes you don't. Everything that you can possibly put on this create source, you need to put it on there. But if you can't find it, you can't find it, and there's no need to get upset or panic about that. This is 2008. And of course, we don't have a page number because we're on a website, and you don't really normally get page numbers on your journal articles. However, if you were looking at a literal journal paper copy, you would have a page number that you could put there. And then the month is May of 2008. And any other of this information, publisher, I don't see that information over here. But again, extremely important every time. Copy and paste the URL. Not only for citing things properly, but also for your own benefit. Very important, always put that URL in there. All right, once you've put in everything that you possibly can about this source, then all you do is click OK. And you will notice that where my, go ahead and expand this back, where my insertion point was, that is where the source was cited. It's in line. Another thing I wanted to demonstrate to you as well is before we enter any citations, we always want to make sure that we're using the appropriate format that our teacher has asked us to use. Again, I'm using the APA 6th edition, but another very common format is MLA. You need to know if you should be using the 6th or the 7th edition because there's some slight changes when they change the editions, and your teacher or professor might notice those. So very important that you do that. All right, now once you've entered your sources, you've cited those sources, you have that information in there, you're probably going, well, how does that help? I could have easily just typed in what I needed to type in here rather than go through all of that other hassle of filling in that information on those lines. Well, here's where it gets really good. At the end of the paper, notice I already have my references listed here, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this so that I can show you how to enter this on your paper. Now, the first thing you want to do is when you enter your references is you want to make sure it's on a separate page. So what you're probably going to need to do is when you get to the end of your text is you're going to want to insert a new page. So I assume you all know how to do that, but there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can go to page layout, page breaks, and enter a page break, and it gives you a brand new page with your headers and footers and everything like they're supposed to be. Now, back over to the References tab. Now that you've entered your sources, you've cited your sources, you've put the information into the proper places, you can tell it to add the bibliography. So go here to Bibliography, and it's going to want to know if you want a bibliography or a works cited. To my understanding, the difference is whether or not you use a direct quote from one of your sources. However, I've also noticed that in this APA format, they're both exactly the same, the bibliography and the works cited. However, in other styles, they may be different. So again, you'll have to check on that. I'm just going to click on Bibliography, and notice that all of the information about all of my sources is put in the proper format, just exactly like it's supposed to be. if it's supposed to be alphabetized or if it's in the order that it appears in your paper. Again, that depends on APA, MLA, some of the different styles that you can use. But in this particular one, puts it in there. You don't have to worry about where do I put colons, where do I put slashes, all of that, what do I italicize? All of those things get taken care of for you. It's just immediate. Now, you noticed when we looked at the Purdue OWL page, this is not supposed to say bibliography for this particular format. So what I'm going to do is just take that out, and I'm going to just type in for myself references. It is supposed to be centered. The text should be black, which is going to be the same as the rest of my paper. And I can change the text color. Also, it is not supposed to be bolded. I noted that for you. And it should be in the same size type as the rest of my paper. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a space there. So there you have it. You have now entered your reference page where you have cited your sources. As you go along, as you write your paper and you have those sources as you're typing, as you're writing it out, just take a moment, fill that information in, no matter where you're getting the information from. And then at the end, when you're through with your paper, it just takes a second to be able to put your references page in there and not have to be so concerned with, well, do I use a colon? Do I use a semicolon? Do I italicize? Do I underline? Keeping all of that stuff straight for me is just not something I'm able to do. So to be able to use Microsoft Word and let it take care of all of those details for me is such a time saver. So there you go. I hope this helps. I hope you are able to now in Microsoft Word cite your sources and be able to have your references page or your bibliography page, whichever, to come out for you just like it's supposed to. Just one last quick note, just in case something is out of line, something isn't in the right order that it's supposed to be, it's not a problem. For instance, if you wanted to list this last on your page for some reason, all you have to do is select it and move it to where you want it to be. So if I wanted to move this down to the very bottom, I could just take it and put it there. And I think there's probably a little extra space in there that I can take out if I need to. And there you go. So even though it's there, you don't have to leave it in that order in case you see something that you need to change. Then also, if you've already put your reference page on here, and you go back and you do more work on your paper and you add or you take out, you do some editing to it, always remember the very last thing that you should do is to come over here and tell it to update your citations. Because if you've added more, it will not add here. If you've taken them out, it will not take them out here unless you tell it to update. So that's also a very important thing. I just generally try to be completely finished with my paper before I add this page, and then I don't have to worry about it so much. But I know sometimes you have to go back and edit right at the last minute, so just always make sure you come back here and tell it to update the citations and bibliographies. All right, I hope this helps, and I hope you're able to make use of this. Have a good day.